What if one night with a stranger could change your entire life? Sophia Carter never believed in fate. To her, success came from hard work, not from fleeting moments of passion. As a rising star in the marketing world, she had built her career with relentless determination. Love and distractions had no place in her world. But that night, the night before the most important presentation of her career, Sophia made a mistake she never saw coming. Dragged to Lux, New York's most exclusive nightclub, she crossed paths with Ethan West, a man shrouded in mystery, exuding an undeniable allure. A glance, a conversation, an unexpected connection, and then a moment that changed everything. The next morning, Sophia woke up alone. No note, no trace. Just a memory that refused to fade. One night, one mistake, and a future she never saw coming. Lux, New York's crown jewel, an elite sanctuary where only the most powerful gained entry. Bathed in golden light, its marble walls gleamed under the soft glow of chandeliers. Crystal flutes of champagne sparkled in the hands of the city's elite. This wasn't just a club, it was a different world. A place where people who had everything still searched for something more. Sophia didn't belong here. She felt it the moment she stepped off the elevator, swallowed by the intoxicating opulence. One drink, then I'm leaving, she told herself. But Katie, her best friend, had other plans. Sophia, this is where winners celebrate, Katie grinned. And after tomorrow, that's going to be you. Sophia laughed, shaking her head, until she saw him, Ethan West. He wasn't like the others in the room. While everyone flaunted their wealth, he simply observed. The tailored black suit fit him perfectly, but something about him told Sophia he wasn't a man defined by expensive clothing. When their eyes met, the energy in the room shifted. Ethan raised his glass in an unspoken greeting. Sophia didn't know why she moved, only that moments later, she was standing beside him. Not drinking? She asked, surprised at her own boldness. A slow, genuine smile played on his lips. Just deciding whether tonight is worth losing control over. And have you decided? He tilted his head, studying her as if he could see straight through her. Maybe I just found a reason too. The conversation flowed effortlessly, quick, electric, impossible to stop. Sophia couldn't remember the last time she had met someone this intriguing. And then she couldn't remember who moved first, who reached for whom first, only that when his lips found hers, nothing else mattered. That night, beneath the shimmering city skyline, Sophia let herself drown in a feeling she had never allowed before. She didn't know that by morning, he would be gone. 2 months later, Sophia Carter sat in her office staring at the calendar on her phone. She had counted the days. Once, twice, 3 times. But the number never changed. 8 weeks? The nausea that lingered for days, the exhaustion that made no sense, and now, the reality she refused to acknowledge had become undeniable. Her fingers trembled as she picked up the phone. I need an appointment. Today. Congratulations, Sophia. You're pregnant. The world tilted. She gripped the edge of the desk, struggling to breathe. But the doctor wasn't finished. And not just 1, but 4. Her heart stopped. 4? Her voice barely came out. The doctor nodded, pointing at the ultrasound screen. 4 heartbeats, 4 tiny lives, and they're all healthy. Sophia couldn't breathe. How was this even possible? She had never planned for motherhood, let alone 4 babies at once. But the worst part, their father had disappeared. She had no number, no way to reach Ethan, just a name, a memory of one night that had now changed everything. And she was completely alone. 2 weeks later, Sophia had learned to ignore the stares. The whispers followed her everywhere she went. She's pregnant, but no one knows who the father is? Is she going to keep working or give it all up? She ignored them all. She had built her career from the ground up. She wasn't about to break now. Until the night of the biggest business event of the year. A gathering of CEOs, investors, and the city's most powerful figures. She didn't want to go, but this was work. Adjusting her dress, she took a deep breath and stepped into the grand ballroom. And then she saw him, Ethan West, tall, commanding, unshaken, like he had never disappeared. But what left Sophia breathless wasn't the sight of him. It was the woman beside him, her hand resting possessively in his. Isabel Montgomery, Ethan's fiancée. Sophia couldn't move. The room buzzed with laughter, the clinking of glasses and murmurs of multi-million-dollar deals, but all of it faded into a dull hum in the back of her mind. She only saw him and her. Ethan West stood across the room, effortlessly charming in a tailored black suit, his polite smile masking whatever lay beneath. But Sophia knew that smile wasn't real. She had seen him without the mask. On that night, when he was just Ethan, not the powerful CEO of Westcorp. But now, his hand was resting in someone else's. Isabel Montgomery. She was everything Sophia wasn't. Elegant, poised, the daughter of one of the wealthiest families in the country. Their engagement was a calculated move, a merger of two powerful dynasties. Love had never been a factor. Sophia felt her stomach twist. She didn't belong here. She should leave. But before she could turn away, Ethan looked up, and their eyes met. Time froze. His entire expression shifted. His jaw tightened, his blue eyes widening in shock. His gaze dropped, taking in the soft curve of her growing belly beneath her sleek evening gown. She saw it then. He didn't know. He had no idea that one night had changed everything, that she was carrying his children. And then a voice cut through the tension like a blade. "Ethan, what are you looking at?" "Isabel." She tilted her head, cool gray eyes flicking toward Sophia, and then something in her expression changed. Her fingers tightened around Ethan's arm as if staking her claim. "Let's go," she said, her voice smooth but unmistakably commanding. Ethan didn't move. He didn't look at Isabel. He didn't take his eyes off Sophia, or off her belly. Sophia's chest tightened. She couldn't do this right now, not here, not with all these people watching. She turned and walked away. She had made it halfway down the hallway when a strong hand closed around her wrist. "Ethan, wait." His voice was raw, laced with something she couldn't decipher. She closed her eyes. She didn't want to hear it. She didn't want to know. "You're pregnant?" It wasn't a question. It was a realization. Slowly, she turned to face him. "Yes, 4 babies." Ethan sucked in a sharp breath, like he had just been punched in the gut. But before he could say another word, a cold voice sliced through the air behind them. "Ethan." Isabel stood there, arms crossed, her gaze cutting through both of them. "Is there something you forgot to tell me?" The air between them was razor sharp. Ethan hadn't taken his eyes off Sophia. Isabel, on the other hand, still held her perfectly poised smile, but her eyes flickered with calculation. "Ethan, what is this?" Her voice was soft, but it carried no patience. Ethan opened his mouth to respond, but Sophia spoke first. "It's nothing." Her voice was steady, but her hands curled into fists. "I have no intention of interfering with whatever you two have. This child doesn't need a father who feels obligated to be there." Ethan stiffened. Did she really believe that? His fists clenched as his mind swirled between two worlds. His marriage to Isabel had never been about love. It was an arrangement, a power move that would solidify his place among the elite, securing everything he had spent his entire life working toward. But now, standing before him, was Sophia and his 4 children, and suddenly all that power seemed insignificant. "I need to talk to Sophia, alone." Ethan turned to Isabel, his voice calm but firm. Isabel's gaze darkened. "You can't be serious," she laughed, the sound void of warmth. "You think throwing away everything for one night's mistake is the smart choice?" Ethan exhaled slowly before speaking. "It wasn't a mistake, Isabel. It never was." Ethan walked away from Isabel, but the weight of her words clung to him. "You're throwing everything away." Maybe he was, but for the first time it didn't feel like a loss. It felt like freedom. He had spent years chasing power, control, and security, yet standing in that ballroom looking at Sophia, pregnant with his children, he realized none of it mattered without her. He had made his choice, and he wasn't going to regret it. "We need to talk, now." Sophia stared at him, conflicted, but instead of pushing him away, she nodded. Because deep down, she needed to know, was Ethan truly ready to make a choice? Sophia never thought she needed anyone, but for the first time in her life, she was grateful that Ethan stayed. The next few months were brutal. Carrying 4 babies drained her more than she ever imagined. The exhaustion was relentless. Her back ached so badly she couldn't sleep, and giving up coffee nearly drove her insane. But Ethan was always there. He moved into an apartment near hers, making sure she never had to go through anything alone. In the mornings, he brought her breakfast in bed, even on days when the only thing she wanted was pickles and chocolate ice cream. At night, he sat on the floor beside her bed, massaging her swollen feet until she could finally fall asleep. When she woke up at 3 a.m., overwhelmed by anxiety about the future, he simply took her hand and squeezed it, a silent promise that they would be okay. At first, Sophia refused to believe it. She convinced herself Ethan was only here out of obligation, that he stayed because of the babies, not because of her. But then, something changed. The way he meticulously read every pregnancy book, highlighting pages and reminding her of important appointments. The way he insisted on driving her to every doctor's visit, even when she claimed she could handle it. The way he looked at her, not just as the mother of his children, but as Sophia, a woman he truly cared about. For the first time in months, she found herself smiling when he walked into the room. For the first time, she didn't flinch when he placed his hand on her belly, waiting for a tiny kick. And for the first time, when his fingers accidentally brushed hers in the kitchen, she didn't pull away. She simply stood there, letting his warmth surround her, realizing she wasn't afraid anymore. Sophia sat on the park bench, her breath mingling with the crisp autumn air. Her hand rested gently on her belly, feeling the soft, fluttering movements of the 4 tiny lives growing inside her. Ethan sat beside her, watching her in quiet contemplation. He had given up everything, status, power, a perfectly arranged marriage, to be here, but not out of duty, not out of obligation, out of love. "You really gave it all up for me?" Sophia asked softly, her gaze fixed on the star-dotted sky. Ethan turned to her, his blue eyes steady. "I didn't give up anything, Sophia. I just chose differently. And this time, I chose you." She smiled, though her eyes shimmered with unshed tears. "I used to think you were only here because you felt you had to be." Ethan gently took her hand. "At first, maybe I did, but then I realized, I'm not here because I have to be. I'm here because I can't imagine my life without you." Sophia's heart pounded. She had never believed in fairy tale endings, but for the first time, she wanted to. Then, to her utter shock, Ethan dropped to one knee. He pulled out a small ring, its silver band catching the glow of the streetlights. "I know we didn't start the way most couples do, but I do know this. I love you, Sophia. Not because of the babies, not because I feel I should, but because of you. Let me do this right." Sophia let out a soft laugh, tears spilling over. She nodded. "I think it's time we stopped running from fate." Ethan smiled, sliding the ring onto her finger, where it had always belonged. Pain tore through Sophia's body, relentless and unforgiving. Her fingers gripped Ethan's hand like a lifeline, her breaths coming in short, sharp gasps. "You can do this, Sophia." Ethan's voice was hoarse but steady. "I'm right here. I'm not going anywhere." Then, the first cry filled the room. Then the second. Then the third. And finally, the fourth. The room erupted with life, with the most beautiful sound Ethan had ever heard. Their 4 little miracles had arrived. Hours later. Sophia was exhausted, but her heart was full. Their 2 baby boys, Theo and Lucas, slept soundly beside her, while Ethan cradled their 2 daughters, Lily and Emma, in his arms, awe written all over his face. "We actually did it," Sophia murmured, her voice weak, but filled with wonder. Ethan looked up, his blue eyes deep with emotion. "No, you did it." He leaned down, pressing a soft kiss to her forehead. "You are the strongest woman I've ever known, Sophia Carter." She smiled, feeling an overwhelming sense of completeness. Their journey hadn't been perfect, but in this moment, she knew she had everything she had ever wanted. 2 years later, a warm summer afternoon. In a lush garden where white flowers swayed in the gentle breeze, 4 little figures ran around, their laughter filling the air. Lily and Emma twirled in their tiny white dresses, curls bouncing with every step. Theo and Lucas wore miniature suits, though neither of them seemed interested in standing still. At the end of the aisle, Ethan stood, dressed in a sharp black suit, but his eyes weren't on the guests or the setting. His eyes were only on her. Sophia, dressed in white, radiant as ever. She didn't need a grand wedding. She didn't need an extravagant affair. She only needed him. As she reached him, he took her hands. "I once thought I had everything," Ethan whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "But I didn't understand what everything truly meant until I had you and our children." Sophia smiled, memories of their journey flashing before her eyes. "Then let's hold on to this everything forever, Ethan West." As Ethan leaned in to kiss her, a small pair of hands tugged at his pant leg. He glanced down to see Lily grinning up at him, her tiny white dress dusted with grass stains. "Daddy, kiss Mommy already," she giggled. Beside her, Lucas attempted to shush her, though his mischievous smirk gave him away. Sophia laughed, bending down to scoop Theo into her arms, while Emma clapped excitedly in Katie's lap. Their children weren't just part of their story, they were the heart of it. Their love story hadn't started the way most did, but in the end, it found the happy ending they both deserved.